Good evening. If it's Wednesday at 6 o'clock, it's time for Off the Record with Ali. I'm your host, Ali Braswell. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for tuning in to the third episode of Off the Record with Ali. It's the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. So excited to continue our conversation around the series of pivots in life. As I shared in the opening episode and in episode number 2 with Janina Hogan's, there's always going to be changes. And the challenge is how do you deal with those changes? How do you manage those pivots in life? I'm bringing on a leader here with us that's just going to be phenomenal. I'm here to tell you it's my brother in leadership, but he's also my brother from the military. Only thing I questioned was his Navy background, but after he told me he was an amphib sailor, that just warmed my good old Marine Corps heart. But Enrique Acosta Gonzalez is just a thought leader extraordinaire. He's been ranked in the top 100, top 50, and now he's in the top 25 thought leaders around leadership. Leads an incredible organization that I'm going to ask him to tell you more about. But most importantly, people, I'm here to tell you, just like I talked with you about engage, invest, grow, and building mutually rewarding relationships, this has been a relationship that we met in one of the most difficult of times that has bloomed into one of the best relationships that I have. And I'm just excited to bring my brother to the screen with me. Please join me in welcoming Enrique Acosta Gonzalez to Off the Record with Ali. Hey, man.
Hey, brother, thank you so much, Ali, for having me and over this topic that we'll be discussing, because change does come and you have to do the pivot. But I'm Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, just as you said, CEO of Triad Leadership Solutions, where we focus on leadership development through coaching, training, and speaking, and a couple of mentorship things that we have going on as well. But thanks for having me.
Man, so glad to have you here because there's just a lot going on out there in the world, and people are always looking for that edge. And I think one of the things that I've been talking about is being able to help bring people to the table to do the right things, to manage the right things. And I think I lost you there for a minute, but I'm gonna see if I can get you right back to the stage. But being able to help people manage that's the golden nuggets. A lot of times when people ask me what is off the record, it's these conversations right here that drop the golden nuggets to help someone in their career, a brand new person looking for a mentor, a leadership coach, be able to manage. And so when you think about pivots, it's all about how you get through it. But before we get deep and start going off the record, let's stay on the record here just for a moment and actually talk about a little bit. What I'd ask you to do is talk about how do we manage our organizations? People know the Braswell Group, but I want them to know about Triad. So you go ahead, sir. Take it away and give them a little knowledge about you and your organization.
Yeah, so Triad Leadership Solutions is, as I mentioned, a leadership development firm where we focus on the personal development and professional development of all the executives and leaders that come our way. We go through a coaching practice. We also do some mentorship, and then we speak and train and develop entities or organizations as a whole. But it's our joy to see the development of a person and then transition that to the development of the professional life as we have had the experience.
And it's so important, folks, to give you his credentials because he's being modest over there. He's also a Maxwell certified trainer, leadership coach. He's been doing this for 12 and a half years. He's a seasoned senior leader, the NCO ranks or as a petty officer, chief petty officer in that core of leaders. We've learned by then, that's going out there. So we stubbed our toes along the way, but we picked up incredible tools, and that's what we're here to share. So let's dive into off the record. And then today's topic in our series on pivots is how do you pivot when there's uncertainty? And you and I were talking as we got ready for this is what is some of the things that have maybe come at you where there was some uncertainty and you had to make a pivot?
When you look at the definition of uncertainty, it says that it's the stage of being uncertain, right? And so if you look at that definition and you say, oh, it's a stage. Well, shoot, I've been on stage before and I've seen things come at me and I've had to done this and that. And so uncertainty shouldn't be feared. It should be something that you should look forward to if it shows up, right? And we know change shows up, shows up, and it is how you relate to that. Are you relating to it in a healthy way, or are you relating to it in an unhealthy way? And that's where you make the differentiation.
Yeah, can you give an example where that hit you in your career? I can share that I'm going through one right now. No one had planned this change around one of the roles that I have the pleasure of working through. I was the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, and in that role as the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, it was a role where I had to have my act together and be able to make an impact and making sure that while it came with the accolades of protocols at some of the highest ranks in the military, it also came with the responsibility of making sure I could do the right thing and help people do the right thing. And so one of the things that happened most recently is I got a letter, and it said that, hey, life is about to change due to a transformational realignment. The civilian aid to the Secretary of the Army program is going to be discontinued. So right there is a change in the midst of uncertainty. We weren't sure where the program was going to go, but one of the things that I had already prepared for was, how would I continue doing what I do? How do I continue to impact young people and help them understand that there's opportunity not only in our Army and other military branches, but also there's opportunity in life if you go after and get your education. And one of the things that I thought that would be great for us to talk about is how we pivot, how we move forward, how we make a difference, even in those times of uncertainty. Because as I told you folks, to be transparent, as life gave me a twist on Friday at about 11 o'clock, and I found out our program, the civilian aid to the Secretary of the Armies, was discontinued. Life gave me that twist, but I'm able to continue to move ahead because I'd already set in my mindset, no matter the outcome, no matter the challenge with the current change in the administration and the direction the Army was going to go, I was going to stay steadfast to what I believed in. And that's investing in young people, that's coaching others who are in their professional careers to get to the next level and making sure we make a difference. So, in the midst of that challenge, I pivoted to continue to have a positive outlook, to be able to look at how I'm going to move forward, no matter what's thrown at me, and to be able to take that pivot and continue to do good things for people. Share, I just went through another pivot in my life, around the civilian aid. What's an example of a pivot that you either recently experienced or one that you remember that we can share with people listening?
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, the biggest pivot was that military to civilian transition, right? And that pivot was forced, if I say correctly. I had 6 months from receiving my, hey, you didn't make E9, and now you're bumped up against higher tenure. You got to make a decision, son. And one of those decisions we're going to make for you, you're out. And so talk about a position to be in. Thankfully, I have a great wife that had already set us up in a way that, yeah, it was a shock and awe kind of to me, but it wasn't a shock and awe to the family. And we were able to, hey, okay, after the dust settled, and say, okay, so this is going to happen. Now, are we prepared? Yes, we're prepared. She did a great job there. Hey, do we like it? No, we don't like it, but it's coming anyway. And can we survive on the other side without some major hurdles to go over? And that was an affirmative as well. And we were able to do that. But a lot of times, what happens is that those pivot times come, those challenges come, and we're not ready. And so the availability of things in your corner when those times come, it makes a world of a difference. and we were able to go ahead and transition. Now, I'm not, that transition's not easy either way. And you get on this side and you're still trying to figure it out. If you ask my wife, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, and oftentimes I'll tell people, one of the things that helps me get through there is my faith and having a strategy, just like you just talked about, your wife already having a strategy to help a pivot. Because sometimes we can see the pivot coming.
Hmm.
We just don't know when it's going to show up, right?
Right.
Whether that be in a job or that be in a career move or being an opportunity, but how do you balance planning with faith or strategy that when you're pivoting, you don't have the full picture? Just like you said, you were up for E9. That's Master Chief for y'all out there keeping up. Okay, that's the cream of the crop. That's the top. And it had done well to even be considered, but then you had this flip, this pivot come up.
Hmm. Yeah. So faith in my life and in my household is the cornerstone of all we do. And so we already had that in place. But you might be out there and say, well, I don't share that. Well, you still have faith because you still have faith that you're going to get a paycheck. You still got faith that people going to show up. You still got faith that people ain't going to leave. There's a different type of faith, but you still exercise some sort of faith in something. And for us, obviously, it's in God. And that kind of put an assurance, right? That's almost like the insurance to the activity. And we were able to look at things a little differently with a little more hope, with a little more enjoyment in, okay, well, this is not showing up for us here, but what is, right? And we start to anticipate and be curious about the things that may come out of this pivot, this shift, this change that's coming our way. But faith was, and like I said, is the cornerstone, but was the substance to what we were trying to
Right.
envision for the future. And so, had we not had that, I think that it would have been a little more challenging. And thankfully, that we didn't have to go that way. And we were able to see not only what we had hoped for come to fruition, but also even greater things.
Right. Because when you're thinking about it, it's like faith is, and a lot of people immediately align that with religion.
Hmm.
But faith truly, even if you look in the definition, it's the belief in something that you can't see.
Hmm.
It's not knowing the outcome, but knowing that if I do all the steps that I should reasonably expect that outcome to be what my desired outcome is. But there's sometimes when you don't control the cards. You're not the person like you said, well, we're gonna make that decision for you. I can remember that when I was a young Marine going up for warrant officer, went in for the commissioning physical, only to find out, okay, yeah, we're gonna help you. Congratulations, you on your way out of the Marine Corps. And I'm going, wait a minute, what are you talking about? This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is it.
Right.
But had I did not have the faith that I will make it, I just now have to learn the game plan or set a game plan. And I think planning is a key for helping you manage the pivots that come in the attitude of uncertainty. It helps you transition through the risk. It helps you get a choice for sitting down. I mean, how many people have actually ever been told, well, sit down and do the pros and cons? What is the 3 or 4 or 5 things that will help you navigate this to success? And what are the 3 to 5 things that can come against you if it doesn't go the way you need it? And then that's when, like you had said earlier, then what is the strategy either way that allows you to manage through that until you can get the full picture? And you have to start sometimes by taking small steps. I think one of the things I encourage people to do, Enrique, is to journal, write it down.
Absolutely.
A lot of times when people are journaling, they actually don't realize that they've already got the solution. Because what do we know as coaches? We can't do it for you. More times than not, all I'm doing is holding you accountable. And that's the kind of off the record conversations that happen that says when you're talking with a mentor or a coach, uh, whatever you call it, it's the small steps that help you get there.
Absolutely. And journaling is one of the key things that people normally just don't interact into their decision making, because as you said, as coaches, we know that we're not here to tell you something and give you answers. We're here to kind of help you sift through all the garbage and get to that you already knew, that is best in your interest, that is something that's in line with your ethics, moral, morality, all that. And we just get inundated on a day to day, and we just can't see that so clear. That's why coaches are so vital for folks that really want to get ahead, right? But journaling is one of those things that allows you to start just dumping on it thoughts, aspirations. What do you think about
Right.
this? And before you know it, you're like, oh my goodness, there it goes, right there. So, very key to helping people in the pivot.
Well, and it also helps when you people, I know one of the things I was guilty of, just being transparent, is we get stuck in analysis paralysis,
Mm.
where we're writing and well, it's got to go this way and it's got to happen like this, and but when you start to lay it out, you can, and you do the pros and cons, you can come up with a game plan. Well, if it goes this way, I can pivot here. If it goes this way, I can pivot here. But what advice would you give someone who might be stuck in analysis paralysis? They're still thinking and waiting for that certainty to come, and it may not, but they got to make that decision.
Yeah, so that normally happens when you're doing it by yourself. The moment you add someone else to that thought process, have a discussion over something, that's when you start to make some movement. And as long as you're just talking to yourself, you could do that all day long. It ain't going to change much unless you're coming up with some great ideas. But to combat analysis paralysis, bring somebody in. It doesn't have to be a coach. Talk to your wife. Those they come up with some good some good stuff, right? Talk to your neighbor. Talk to a colleague. Dude, sometimes I talk to my sons and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Especially with the new age things, right? They're like, "Nah, Dad, that's not gonna work." I know what you're thinking, but it ain't gonna work. So the moment you add another person, another mind, another conversation to that, you'll see some movement.
You're so spot on, because it's the difference in perspectives. Isn't that really what we talk about when we
Right.
we talk about bringing different life, different experiences to the table? DEI has gotten such a bad rap, but it wasn't about any particular ethnicity. It was about bringing different experiences to the table so that you could get different answers and different ideas about how to solve things. They proved, Forbes magazine writes about it a lot, about the more diverse the team, the more diverse the thought, the more creative the process. I remember reading Franz Johansson's The Medici Effect, where he talks about how a Formula One team came together, or maybe it was NASCAR, came together with Revlon, and they looked at how they developed the mascara brush, okay? How they developed it so that it would go on and they used techniques from understanding how those engineers engineered that little brush to help improve their process in NASCAR. Or maybe it's the gentleman who watched the ant colony to understand how to cool buildings in sub-Saharan Africa, so that by watching the ants, how the worker ants move the dirt around within the colony to maintain the temperature within the colony at a perfect temperature, he was able to recreate that by leveraging and looking at different perspectives. And I think that's what the beauty is of having somebody else. So, as usual, here comes Enrique with a nugget. The kids go like this now, they start clapping and snapping, but golden nuggets right there in that, bring other people into the conversation, have different perspectives on how to go ahead and navigate through uncertainty. And when you really think about it, life's got a lot of challenges coming at us right now. life's got a lot of challenges, and uh, best thing I can do is tell you, stay the course, stay true to what you believe in, and continue to do the good things. And I guarantee you, we're going to see this through. But as pivots will come, it's how to navigate them, turn them into a positive. And I love that idea of talking to your spouse, your significant other, because one of the reasons I'm on Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast, is listening to my wife and saying, you really need to be telling people all this crazy stuff you tell me.
And there we go, right? Here we are, right? And so it's vital, it's important.
And I think when you talk about dropping nuggets to people in the real off the record conversation. So let's go off the record. Here's the conversation, folks. Nobody's got a perfect roadmap. Nobody's got the perfect game plan. It's having enough resources around you, and somebody you can pick the phone up and say, hey, I'm going through this. I don't know how I'm going to navigate it. Have you experienced it before? Can you give me some idea how to get through it? That's the off the record conversation. This is what happens when you go in and you do that great meeting, and then the leader and his trusted circle or her circle sit down and say, okay, how are we going to do this? And then it's the shared thought. We own it together, and by owning it together, we then come up with some creative processes to fix things. I'm thankful for the accolades and the things I received, even as a civilian aide. But it was a concerted effort of everybody around me helping, being able to work with the recruiters and come up with ideas for how we can engage different sections of the community who may have a misconception about military service, helping to overcome that by being present, by showing authenticity in who we are, and then being able to carry that forward into seeing real stories. And Rick, I'm proud to tell you that while I did make the officer ranks, I've helped over 12 young people who are now future officers or currently serving be able to attain something that was a dream and a vision of mine, but helping them navigate and being there for them is just a incredible return on investment.
Absolutely. I know it warms your heart. And just like when we are in service and we see that private or that airman go from that to petty officer or, staff sergeant, you're like, oh my goodness. I had a little bit to do with that. Not all of it, but just a little. And I know that your time as, a civilian aide there, uh, you have impacted way more than what you just counted. Believe that.
I believe that. I accept that. I receive that. I think about a young captain that I ran into at a base. I'm not sure what the base name is, so I'm gonna call it Camp Fort Jackson, okay? Because last time I checked, it still is. But she was an Evans High School graduate from Orlando, and I'm just standing there and I'm looking at her like, this young lady looks familiar, but I can't place it. So she said, "Well, I'm from Orlando, Florida," and it snapped. She was one of our kids in our JROTC programs over at Maynard Evans High School. Now she's a captain commanding. And I got a chance to pull her to the side. She says, "Well, sir, you would have known me by my maiden name." And she shared it. I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And I got on the phone with her advisor from the time. It was incredible to watch it. But then here is the return on investment. She then shared, and I'm studying for my doctorate. I'm here to tell you that she has now earned her doctorate in business, and she has earned the rank of major. And there's not too many gray hairs I had to grow to watch that happen. So and she talks about her pivots in the Army and how she had to navigate and the things she had to overcome. So what I want you to take away from this is there will be pivots, there will be unforeseen changes, there will be uncertainty, but with a sound game plan, with the ability to journal and write it down, pivot to call Enrique's, call Allie's and say, hey, Unc, I don't know how to navigate this because that's what my wife says. I'm everybody's favorite uncle. I haven't seen this before, but with all that gray hair up there, maybe you have. Leverage your resources, whether that be your wife, your spouse, your significant other, an uncle, an aunt, a former coworker. Leverage your resources to help you navigate the uncertainty and see your way through the pivot. Because I think, as you said earlier, Enrique, on the other side of it is going to be great things.
And you have to know that. You have to know that even if you don't know it like intrinsically, right? It's not there in your hand, but you have to use that faith that we talked about to say, hey, yeah, it may be different than what I thought, but it may be better, right? So it's always fun to see, and the curiosity of people to just go anyway, do it anyway, right? Do it scared, do it ugly, however you want to put it, but just do it and see, because you just never know. I mean, both of us, we had to go and say bye to the base at one time, and we just never knew. And if you look at my, yeah, if you look, don't look at my LinkedIn profile. You may be too amazed there. But if you look at all that, you're like, wow, how much has happened since then? And this couldn't have happened unless I left there. So, even in what may seem as a demoralizing moment for you, you didn't attain this one thing that you was after. The other stuff may eclipse that by 1,000, and you just may be holding that off. So just think about that.
Well, Golden Nuggets, of course, sir. And I just want to thank you for making time to join us on the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast, because this is where it's unscripted, it's unfiltered, and definitely technology interrupts it. But
And we
even today in this, we pivoted to be able to make a difference and to be able to show people that no matter the challenge that may come at you, there is a way to map your way through it. Hold your heads high. Never lower or cower down. Just step firmly into it. When you step into it, it's going to give you the amount of energy that you put into it is what you're going to receive back. So when things come at you, just understand, come up with a game plan, reach out and leverage a resource and help you pivot through the uncertainty so you can get to the other side to the greater reward. I just want to thank Enrique for coming and spending time. I know he's got busy things and clients to serve, but thanks for the gift of your time. Thanks for being here. And any last thoughts to our audience that you want to share before I close this out?
Yeah, challenges is going to give you a choice, right? You could either be scared or you could be courageous. That choice is yours. But you can't blame nobody for what happens afterwards, right? So I encourage you to choose courage. Like I said, do it scared, do it anyway.
So, folks, as we close out, just let's thank Enrique. Go out and check him out on LinkedIn. Don't let him be intimidated with that. Go out there and take a look, sign up, join his podcast. Tell them about your podcast that they can catch you on Friday, sir.
Yeah, you could look on YouTube at DTLW Podcast, as Developing the Leader Within Podcast, and we'd love to have you give us some comments and let us know how we're doing.
Awesome. So continue to do great things, folks. Continue to tune into Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast, where we're going to bring the real conversations. No matter the challenge, you'll overcome it. No matter what you face, there's an answer to it. Maintain the faith in yourself, in your belief system, that you'll get through the pivots and the challenges. Tune in next week as I'll summarize our series on pivots as we get ready to move into the month of July and go out and do some great things. Don't just take this weekend on 4th of July and eat a bunch of hot dogs and hamburgers, and hopefully you throw back some ribs and potato salad. But remember the young people who stand on the front lines that guard us as a nation, because freedom isn't free. Take a moment of silence on July 4th for them, for the young men and women who stand on the front lines and say, I will sacrifice my time, my energy, and even put myself at risk to protect a great nation. My name is Alec Braswell, Marine, leader, and just somebody out here wanting to do good and pay it forward. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. Tune in next Wednesday at 6 o'clock when if you're at 6 o'clock and it's a Wednesday, it's Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. See you soon.